On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to take a deep dive into the 7 programs I use every week to support a successful fee-based financial planning practice.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know, learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based Financial Planning Mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. A while back, I was given a statement to finish that really stopped me in my tracks, and it really made me think. You know, it's a fantastic statement, which has been on my mind for a good few weeks now. Now, first off, here's the statement that I want you to finish with as many responses as you can. So think of this. The statement is, I know I'm successful when. Now, but a guy by the name of Dean Jackson asked the question, and it blew me away. And I know I'm successful when. Well, here are some of the responses that Dean came up with that basically he said were his. And you know, it really made me think quite a bit. And, you know, he said, I know I'm successful when I can disappear for several weeks with no negative effect to my income. He says, I know I'm successful when my passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. And he also says, I know I'm successful when I can live anywhere I choose. In other words, what truly makes you happy? The reason why it seems to take longer to answer questions like this is because we have to be truly honest with ourselves to find the answers that are meaningful to us. It's not a question that you can use, you know, anyone else's responses to. You have to answer it for yourself. So take the time and use some of the responses that we just talked about to guide you, and take a few minutes to write down some of your own responses. Doing this will make a difference in your own life. I know it made a huge difference for me, and it really started me thinking. So take the time and ask yourself, or write down the statement, I know I'm successful when. And then just start writing, just start brainstorming. What is it that makes you feel successful? What are the things that's going on in your life or in your lives right now that really make you feel successful? What is it that allows you to feel confident and just like unstoppable? And put those things down. What is it that gives you the highest amount of confidence? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to running your own show and being a fee-based financial planner and operating your own business, and really, I mean, what we're doing is we are delivering confidence to people. We are showing people we have the wisdom and confidence to be a leader. And people look to us for that. So if you're going to be a leader, if you're really going to take people down this path and show them what they need to do or what is best in their best interest for them to do to accomplish their goals, you need to do it for yourself as well. This is something you could probably even use in your practice. Sit down with your clients and ask them to answer the question. I know I'm successful, or not, it's not really a question, but ask them to answer the statement or to finish the statement. I know I'm successful when. And see what happens. See what happens, and really, you know, use that as a bit of a tool to direct. If you're creating your own V2 MOM, which we've talked about in a previous episode, if you're really sitting down and getting clear on what your vision is for your business, finish the statement, I know I'm successful when, and see what comes up for you. I think you'll be glad you did.
And now for our feature segment.
So let's talk about the 7 programs I use every week to run my successful fee-based financial planning practice. These are when I sat down and I said, what is it I do in a week, and what are the things that I'm using that I just can't live without? Well, it's oftentimes a daunting task to put the infrastructure in place to support a successful fee-based financial planning firm. There's so much that you can do, that you need to do, that you have to put in place. So in this episode, I'm going to run through the programs I use every week, what I use them for, and where I get them. Hopefully, this will help you lay the proper foundation for your business. So building a fee-based financial planning business usually goes through 2 major phases. And this is something that you've got to understand when you're building your practice. It's not something, ideally, I'd love it if we could just all jump to phase 2, but I think we have to go through phase 1. And I'm not saying that we always have to, but I think in most cases we do. Phase 1 is what's called the hub and spoke phase. Hub and spoke phase is really just you're the epicenter of the business. Everything revolves around you. All the support, all of the planning, all of the work you do is all based on you. I mean, your clients meet with you, your suppliers meet with you, your staff, they work for you. And it's all about you. So it's called the hub and spoke. So you're the hub, and all the spokes are all the things that feed into you. Phase 2 is when you get to the entrepreneur phase. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the entrepreneur phase, because that is really where the exponential growth can take place. So remember that there's the 2 phases, hub and spoke, and then entrepreneur phase. These are 2 distinctly different phases that you have to truly understand. So here's one of the hardest lessons I have ever learned as a business owner. The lesson is the acknowledgement that I am not yet an entrepreneur. You know what? And either are you. How do I know this? Well, here's the best definition of entrepreneur I've ever heard. Entrepreneurs identify the problems, discover the opportunities, and then build the processes to allow other people and other things to do the work. It's that other people and other things that pissed me off the most. You see, as I'm sure, when you think about this, it's going to bother you as well. It really makes you pause and think, because, I don't know if it's ego, I don't know what it is, but there's something that basically makes us feel very comfortable in the hub and spoke phase. But when you get to an entrepreneurial phase, and I just go back to this definition, entrepreneurs identify the problems, discover the opportunities, and then build processes to allow other people and other things to do the work. That's the power. It's the other people and other things. So keep that in the back of your mind. And as we go through this, you're going to see how I'm starting to evolve my practice into actually doing that. I'm migrating things over to the entrepreneurial phase. I've done the hub and spoke phase. I've got that. That's down. It's in the bag, so to speak. But I want to get things to the entrepreneurial phase. So let's go through it then. So here's what I'm doing. I'm focusing my energies right now on building processes to allow other people and other things to do the work for me. And I guess you could say that my ideal is I think I've said it before, I want to be unemployed and get paid for it. So let's get started and go through what I'm doing right now in order to make that happen. Now, the reality is, unemployed for me, I don't know if that's ever a possibility, because I truly just love what I do. I truly love being a business owner, and the idea of entrepreneurial, what is it? The idea of being an entrepreneur is, it's addictive to me. It's kind of like that crack that keeps me going. Because there's always this idea of being creative and designing something that will run without you and still generate the revenue for you. And that to me is very powerful. And that's, look at all the most successful people in business today. Look at Richard Branson. This is a guy that basically goes in and finds businesses, and he hires other people, other great people to run the businesses for him. So, keep that in mind as well. So I believe that you need to build your hub and spoke business first before you can become an entrepreneur. Unless you have a huge financial backer and a tested business model that you can build upon, you need to create things that work first. Then put processes in place to run them for you. So let's assume you already have the comprehensive financial planning mindset. You see, that's sort of like it's a critical starting point in this business is it's critical because everything you do must start with financial planning. Everything has to be financial planning first. If someone asks you to help them with their investments, you need to say that you can't until you know what their plan results are. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark as to whether or not the investments are appropriate to support their plan. So you've got to make them understand, listen, investments are important, don't get me wrong, but how do we know what investments are appropriate until we've done your financial planning for you? Same goes with insurance. You need to know what they want to accomplish first before you can assess what the appropriate insurance portfolio would look like. Most people in the financial world focus on the investments in insurance first and try to convince people that their tools are the best. Problem is, you don't really know if the client needs the tool in the first place unless you've completed a comprehensive financial plan. And that, I think that right there is the essence of why you'll find that when you really embrace a comprehensive financial planning mindset and everything is approached from the planning perspective, your implementation on investments and insurance and all that sort of, that actually goes up. And I think it's because people, when they're getting the results from you, they're getting results that are based on logic and they're based on their affairs. And they really realize that you understand them better than anybody else has ever understood them. You're not selling them anything. You're actually assisting them in accomplishing their goals. And so the reality is, at the end of the day, if it's the right thing, and see, you can't do this wrong. You can't try and put something in place that's not the right thing for people. You've always got to put the right things in place. If it's term insurance, it's got to be term insurance. If it's permanent insurance, it's got to be permanent insurance. If it's a very diversified, balanced portfolio, then it's got to be that. If it's got to be a very conservative portfolio, it's got to be that. You can't focus on the return. You've got to focus on appropriateness of solution for supporting the financial plan that they're working on. So let's then take a look at the core infrastructure that I'm using today that I can't live without. So the first thing that every financial planner needs is financial planning software. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time here because everyone listening may be in a different jurisdiction. And as a result, will have different software available to them. Different software, different companies, different, it's just different laws and whatever. So you've got to get a really, really good piece of software for the jurisdiction that you're in. So here in Canada, I have used pretty much every different software solution. Now, it's been a while since I've sort of done a full analysis because I did, for the longest time, I was using a program called NaviPlan, and it was great. I did a deep dive into FP solutions to see if it was better or worse, and did a really deep dive into all of that. Anyways, what I'm using right now is I'm using a program called the Razor by FP Advantage. In my mind, it's the most amazing piece of software for my practice, for supporting what I'm trying to accomplish and for allowing me to present the material and present the information to my clients in the way that makes the most sense to me. It's an awesome program. So if you're in Canada and you're not using the Razor, I would highly suggest you check it out. We use it extensively. I probably write more plans using the Razor in 1 week than most planners do in a year. It's an amazing piece of software, and it's really the logic behind it, the methodology behind how it's being approached. And so, I've developed a great relationship with Dave Faulkner, the creator of it, and his support staff, and Corey, and the whole crew there. And I did a deep dive into it originally, and now I really don't speak to them too much because the software works for me. Every so often I'll give them a call and say, hey, I'm working on something that's a little more sophisticated. How would I make this work? And their support is great because they're actually in the trenches. And one of my immutable laws is that I'm not going to work with anybody that has not been in the trenches before. Well, they're actually running a financial planning firm, and that's where they're using the software for themselves. So I know they get where it works and where it doesn't, so it's just a great tool. So if your bottom line is if your software needs are accomplishing these three things, then I think you're going to be in good shape. So if you do check out the Razor, let them know that you heard about it from listening to the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery podcast. Just mention my name to either Dave or Corey or Brad or whoever you're talking to there, and just let them know that I've sent them your way because I really think the software is a powerful tool. So the bottom line that I was talking about is that it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're in, software your software needs to accomplish the following. Number one, it's got to be easy for your staff to use and input client data accurately. I mean, you need to be able to hand off the data input side of things to your staff, because when you get together with a client and then they give you all their stack of data and all this information, you need to be able to hand that off and hand it to one of your assistants in order to have them be able to easily put all the information into the program. Then you need to, it has to be easy for you to be able to explain any numbers being generated by the program. So you'll need to run some sample plans and ask lots of questions in your analysis time of the company to enable you to be able to explain the numbers you're presenting to clients. You see, one of the things, the more robust a piece of software is, oftentimes the more complicated it is to be able to explain a certain detail to a client. They may, clients see things just differently, and you'll be amazed at when you're going through the presentation process how they'll come up with a question. You think, wow, that's a great question. And they'll say, well, where'd that number come from? And then you need to be able to go in and justify the number. Well, if you can't do that quickly, then it actually devalues your worth in the whole process. So you need to be an expert on the software that you're using. So run some sample scenarios. Just take some basic case studies. And what I would do first of all is, if I've got 3 or 4 different pieces of software that I'm considering using, I would take a look at your average plan and just create an average case study, and then run that case study through all the different software programs you've got. Generally, the software companies are going to give you a trial, 30-day free trial or something like that you can then use in order to analyze and assess the software. While you're doing that, you want to then run the financial plan from with the same data, run it through each plan and see which one gives you the output that makes sense to you. See which one allows you to explain it the best to your clients. And then you need the ability to pull key reports from the plan. Things like simply pulling a net worth statement, pulling something called your attainable retirement income, pulling a report that gives a client the attainable retirement age that they're on track for, to be able to calculate what their surplus is, the surplus that's not required to support their retirement income goal. These are some key reports that I use whenever I'm presenting my financial plan, because those are the key reports that make sense to clients. Clients want to know, where am I today? If I can see on one statement what I'm worth, great. And then they want to know, okay, when can I retire? What am I on track for? What type of income could I expect? And then the surplus report, that's one that's important to me, because it allows me to say to a client, look, you've got surplus built into your plan today, and it can help clients. For example, I have a client that it can help them answer the question. If they came to me and said, listen, I'm thinking about buying a cottage, but I don't know if by doing so is going to negatively impact my financial plan or my ability to retire when I want. Well, I can calculate the amount of surplus they have in their plan today, and that surplus is basically the amount of money they don't need to support their retirement goal. So I can answer the question if they can use their some of that surplus to buy a cottage without it impacting their financial planning or their retirement planning. So, being able to extract that information is important. Now, I tend to stay away from the detailed plan modeling, as a lot of time is wasted on creating planning models that will never happen. What you want to be able to do is highlight what options are available to a client, so that as they progress, they can make better decisions about what's important to them within the constraints of their plan. You see, when I first really got into financial planning and really took a deep dive into it, I was modeling every solution. I would sit down with a client and I would say to them, okay, what scenarios do you want me to model? Which scenarios are important to you? And I would model every one of them, and we'd then take a look at them all. And you know what I found? Not one of them ever came to pass. Why? Because there were too many variables. Too many things could happen along the way that would take them off track. So what I want to do is I want to be able to highlight the options that are available to a client so that they can understand where they stand financially and what they have available to them in the future. So being able to say to them, listen, as you go forward, I know that you have enough net worth in order to retire comfortably. However, I know that you don't have enough liquid net worth to retire comfortably. So now maybe the focus is we need to focus on your liquid net worth. And being able to identify the difference between liquid net worth and illiquid net worth is incredibly important to anybody who's retiring, because you can be equity rich and cash poor. And that's what that type of planning allows you to illustrate to clients. So from a financial planning standpoint, everybody needs a great piece of software they can use for their financial planning. So what I would do is I would just simply focus on finding the right one for you. And as I say, in Canada, I use the Razor. Check it out. And if you're anywhere else, definitely just go through that sort of bit of a checklist to determine if that financial planning software can give you that information. The simpler, the better, but don't go too simple. You want to make sure that all the financial planning software is cash flow based, that it does a true tax calculation for while the client's retired, so you can really track the type of cash flow that's coming in, because there's some inherent flaws in what's known as goals-based financial planning, where you assume an average tax rate for a client during retirement. And there's, especially in a marginal tax rate system, there's some inherent flaws there. And we can always get into that in a later episode, but just understand that point. So now the second software or the program that I use is CRM software and any supporting software that goes into that. Now, the CRM software I use is Salesforce, and I've gone into a deep dive into Salesforce. I've talked about it many times before, but honestly, our office cannot live without this program. What you need to be able to do with your CRM software is the following. You need to keep track of client information starting at what's called the household level. So it's, Fred and Wilma Flintstone, that's the household. Then you need to be able to dive into who is part of the household, and they're known as what's called the contact level. So Fred is a contact in the household, Wilma is a contact in the household. Then you need to be able to keep track of all the opportunities for those contacts. So opportunity types such as, a financial plan, that's an opportunity type we have. Different investment plans that they have, those are all opportunities. Different insurance, all this sort of thing. Any service or product that you provide to your clients within your practice should be identified as an opportunity and then tracked independently. The benefit of this is simply it's better organization in your system. I was speaking to our manager of client services the other day, and she was telling me how much better it was now than in the past since we began using Salesforce.com. She said that she is able to keep track of everything in such an easy way now, and nothing falls through the cracks. And this is one of the problems we had with our old software, is that we felt that it just was getting too much and things were starting to fall through the cracks. It wasn't as easy. We had to keep so much more information in our heads. And I tell you, when your business takes off, you just can't keep everything in your head. So, using the example I was talking about, Fred and Wilma Flintstone, they're the clients. That's the household. They'll have an entry in the system for their household called Fred and Wilma Flintstone. Then both Fred and Wilma are listed as individuals under the household. So when I look at the household, I can then see in the drop-down menu the list of contacts within the household. And what I'll see Fred and Wilma. And if they have kids, I can put the kids there as well. Then when I click on the opportunities, so there's in Salesforce, we have a thing called household opportunities. So I click on the opportunities and it shows me every opportunity that I'm working on, and it shows me all the stages that all of those opportunities are at. Things like, are they at, is this an opportunity that I've identified that we haven't yet looked into? Is it going through some underwriting stages? Is it going through a plan writing stage? So it tells me the stage of everything. So at a glance, I can click on all the opportunities for that household and see where everything is. So when I click on either Fred or Wilma, under or the household, if I look under the opportunities list, their financial plan will show up. So if I've got the household, their financial plan, it shows up because it was a plan written for the household. If I look under under Fred or Wilma, it will also show up as one of the opportunities there is an individual linked to, because they're part of that opportunity. And so everything to do with that financial plan, all the reports, all the progress reports, all the future statements, anything that's supporting that are all saved as attachments to that opportunity. Now, if they each had a life insurance policy, then I would create a life insurance policy for Fred and then a life insurance policy for Wilma, and then I'd be able to track all the details for that policy. But when I click on Wilma, I would only see the life insurance opportunities for her. I wouldn't see, or any opportunities for her, but I wouldn't see any of Fred's opportunities. And that's important because you don't want to when you're doing that. So when I look at his opportunities, it will only show the opportunities that he's associated with. It won't, for example, as I said, show any of the opportunities that Wilma's associated with. And that just simply keeps things organized. The great part of all of this is that you can then automate workflows to happen for each opportunity. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So I have an automated email system set up so that when I have a life insurance opportunity, so this automated email is sent to the insured person on a life insurance policy when we're notified that the medical is booked, so when we basically book a medical, and then we know that that's booked, then we basically say, okay, the stage for that opportunity is that the medical is booked. Well, as soon as it hits that stage, an email is instantly automated and it gets sent out to that individual. Now it's either sent to Fred or Wilma. So it gets instantly sent out to them, and it tells them exactly how to prepare for their medical. So things like get a good night's sleep, don't drink caffeine just before the appointment. That, if you wake up and you don't feel great, then cancel the appointment. So it gives them a whole checklist of information that helps them get prepared for that appointment. Well, that happens on an automatic basis. So all that we have to do is, when we identify that the insurance opportunity has hit a certain stage, then things get triggered for it automatically. So it's all automated, so we don't have to remember to do it. Now, I could go on and on regarding the automating that we do as a result of Salesforce.com, but now is not the time for that. Just understand that if you can document a process for something that you can service, then that process needs to be automated. So if you go through, there's a certain process you go through when you're doing an insurance policy. There's a certain process that you go through when you're dealing with a client's investment account. There's a certain process you go through when you're writing a financial plan. So you can then say, this is the process, these are the stages that we go through, and as certain stages get hit, you can automate the firing of certain tasks, either tasks to your staff, emails to your clients, whatever it happens to be. The supporting software I use with Salesforce is all of the Google for Business apps. And if you haven't looked at Google for Business, this is something you really need to check out. And again, I'll put links to all of this in the show notes, but it deals with, it allows you to have, my name at mycompanyname.com. And that's what's important, because then it consolidates everything. So I've got my email, I've got a cloud-based hard drive, I've got my calendaring, I've got Google Groups, I've got my Google Reader, I've got my analytics, Google Analytics, where I can track my website stats and all that sort of stuff. All of that is through the free Google accounts. But when you go through Google Apps, I think it's $50 per user per year. So it's really not a lot of money. And it just gives you so much power and so much control. And it fully integrates with Salesforce.com. And, I'm sure it probably integrates with some other CRM software programs. But the way that I see it happening with Salesforce is truly, truly amazing. I still don't quite know how it all happens. But you know what? That's the beauty of cloud-based computing. Now, the third thing that I use every single week is mind mapping. If you've never used a mind map before, you're in for a phenomenal surprise. As soon as I found out about mind mapping, it changed my life. I use a mind map to organize and get what is really just, garbage in my head out of my head, and I put it on a mind map, and it gets put out in such an organized way because you can just do a brain dump. I use a mind map daily. The first way I use it each week is to map out my ideal week. So I've created a mind map template that I use that basically just says what's important. So I list, for me, the three things that I call my three critical must-dos. These are things that I have to get done that week. So that's my first component. Then I list all of the meetings that I have for the week and what needs to be done to properly prepare for each meeting. So, at the first thing I do on Monday morning, I get up really, really early, sometimes 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I sit down and I put together my ideal week. And that just allows me to get my head wrapped around what needs to be done for that week. So I identify what the three critical must-dos are, and there's only three. I identify what all the meetings are that I need to get prepped for, I need to have prep done for, and it just allows you to stay very focused on that. Then I list all the strategic projects that I'm working on and that I want and need to get moved forward during the week. So we'll get to another program that I use for managing all of that, but I'll identify, okay, what are the projects I want to work on this week, and what do I need to move forward? Because you can't oftentimes get your entire project done in a week. It's very difficult to do that. So it usually requires, especially when they're long-term projects, it usually requires you moving it forward. So I track my projects in a different system, which I'll get to in a moment, but then I identify what I need to work on that week, and then I list it in my mind map. So this one document accounts for 80% of my weekly success because I follow it to the letter. Basically one of I call it my immutable laws. One immutable law that I have is I always plan out my ideal week every single week. Whenever I don't know what to do next during the week, I pull up my ideal week and I look at it. and I look at what items are still left to be done. I always start with my meeting prep as the first thing that I do before anything else gets done to ensure my meetings are all prepared for. Do you know how great it is to be able to go into start your week knowing that your entire meeting prep for your entire week is already done and just waiting for you in an envelope to grab that envelope and have that review meeting? Then I move to my 3 critical must-dos for the week. And then I try to get them all done. All 3 of those critical must-dos, I try to get them all done on Monday. So it's a busy day on Monday. I sit down, map out my week, make sure all my meeting prep is taken care of. Once that's done, I then attack my 3 critical must-dos. And I just work on them. And that's the sole focus, because I know if I can get all that done on Monday, then the rest of the week is pretty much anything I get done is gravy. So it just gives me a huge sense of confidence going into my week. And, the mind mapping software I use is, again, it's listed in the show notes. It's called MindMeister. And it's cloud-based, so it works amazingly well on my iPhone, my iPad. So wherever I am, I've always got my ideal week. So I can always call it up and say, okay, if I've got some time, what do I need to do? Is there anything I can do on my mind map that I can move forward? So it's just a powerful tool. It just keeps me on track. It just allows me to let my mind go. I don't have to remember anything. And whenever I'm faced with a period of time where I've got something, or I'm confused on what I should be doing next, I just open up my mind map, take a look at my ideal week, take a look at my 3 critical must-dos, do them first. If they're all done, then I go to my strategic projects, and then I start working and moving those forward. I get a ton done in a week. I get more done in a week than most people. I'm always amazed at how little other of my colleagues get done in a week. And I hear that, I'm working through, and I could have 20 to 25 meetings in one week, all fully prepared for and it's a bit of a marathon sometimes, but man, do I get a lot done. Now, the next one, the 4th thing that I do, and this is a core one, this is my project management software. Now, if you don't already, you are surely going to have projects that will take longer than a week to complete. And they're going to involve many other people to get them completed. So keeping track of who needs to do what when is difficult. People have before, they've used spreadsheets, they've used Excel spreadsheets, they've used Word documents, but now there's a tool out there that is awesome. We use a service called Basecamp. And I'm going to, again, put a link to it in the show notes. If you aren't using Basecamp, this thing is just the most amazing piece of software. Basecamp is where we list all of the ideas and projects that we're working on. So all the strategic projects that I come up with. When I do planning meetings, and I go to my strategic coach meetings on a quarterly basis, and I sit down and I map out all the things that I want to do, I put all this information into my Basecamp, and so that just keeps track of it for me. If I've got regular things that I do, it's just a great place to consolidate everything, so that I can always know I've always got a place that I can turn to that keeps track of where things are at and what needs to be done next. So Basecamp, that's where we list everything. So here's how I use it. So number one, in setting up a new project in Basecamp. So first, when I have a new project I want to complete, the first thing I do is I mind map it. So I lay it out on a mind map and I say, okay, what are all the moving parts? What needs to be completed? And I put that on my map. Then once I can see the entire project on a mind map, then I create the project in Basecamp. Then in Basecamp, I identify all the to-do lists. And generally the to-do lists that need to be done are all the main nodes of your, and a node, if you don't know, when you get into using mind mapping, a node is sort of the main idea point. So a to-do list is really my main idea. And so if the main idea is if it's putting together a podcast, if the main idea is come up with an episode, then I put all the to-dos I need to do in order to come up with that episode, So that's number one is then putting all the to-dos. So once you've come up with all the lists and all the different things that need to get done, then I list all of the tasks that need to support that to-do list. Okay, so if I know that I need to eventually, if my list is to produce or create the podcast, then I'll sit down and I'll say, okay, what do I need to do to create it? I need to come up with the episode idea. I need to sort of map out some notes for that idea. I need to do some research on that. And so I just sort of say, well, what are the steps I need to do in order to accomplish that step? Then, again, I've got the whole mind map mapped out. I simply start at the top and work through what needs to be done. Everyone who is on the project is then identified. So when they need to do something, the entire project can be tracked at a glance to see if anything is falling behind. So the system actually notifies people in advance of when due dates are coming up that they've got a due date coming up. So I don't have to worry about reminding anybody. Everyone on the project is notified when they need to do something, and it just keeps everybody on track. Now, you can see who should be working on what, and everything relating to the project is stored within the projects themselves. So at a glance, I can open up a project and I can see where it's at. I can see what's been done, what has yet to be done, and who's working on what. I can invite people from outside of my company onto the projects. And this is one of the reasons why I went to Basecamp, is because I recognize that, sometimes some of the projects are going to involve outside resources. It's going to involve consultants. It's going to involve, other people. So I needed a system that was robust enough that I could keep track of what they needed to do in the system, even if they weren't part of the, subscriber to the system. Again, that's where Basecamp comes in. So I can invite people from outside of my company into the projects. They only see the projects they're invited into, and we've just had such great success with that. Now, when it comes to managing all your projects in Basecamp, there's what's called a dashboard, and it shows you all the projects being worked on and their current progress. Now, on Monday of each week, when I'm planning out my week, when I'm putting together my idea week, I simply go to the projects that I want to move forward that week and then list the to-do steps that need to be done, and I put them on my mind map. So I can sit down and I can say, okay, out of all the projects, I see them all. They're listed as the master list. I can click on any one, say what's the next step that needs to get moved forward, who needs to do what, and I can move it forward. Everything simply is managed on these projects. All communications is recorded, all emails and files, renditions, anything. So you can see different versions of things like documents and presentations and who's working on what and all that sort of stuff. So I couldn't keep track of all of my ideas if it weren't for Basecamp. And the curse of being an entrepreneur is that you probably have lots of ideas. So what I do is I just record the idea, and if it's an idea that I think is worthy of getting onto a project, then I'll throw the idea into Basecamp. And there's a section in Basecamp where you can actually put the ideas in. And so you may not see them on your main list, but then you can say, oh, what are my ideas? Maybe there's something else I want to do, and just run through the ideas list and see if anything jumps out at you. For routine projects, it's also pretty impressive. A routine project for me is something like a podcast. It's something like creating a blog post. It's something like, all that sort of thing. So what I've done there is I've then created what's called a template. So I know that I have to go through the same process every single time I put together a podcast. So I just simply mapped it out. And then I mapped out who needs to do what in the different stages. I put everything into a nice list, a bunch of checklists. This way, when the next episode needs to be completed, I simply activate the template, and then it logs all the to-do items. So I simply go into my Basecamp and say, okay, I want to do another podcast episode. I'm going to then call up the template I've created. I click on it. I fill in the blanks for the episode number and the topic, and then it does everything. It just sort of, boom, it just assigns everything. So if you haven't checked out Basecamp, definitely check that out. And again, there's a link to it in the show notes. The fifth thing that I use is I use my iPhone and iPad all the time. I can't live without them. With my iPhone, this is where I listen to podcasts. I keep my Salesforce calendar, my email, my mind maps, you name it. It all gets organized in that. One of the greatest features in the iPhone is the ability to listen to things at double speed. When I'm listening to some content, I can get through tons of material at half the time because there's a little option that allows you to push the button, and it says replay this back at 2 times speed. Well, 2 times speed is pretty important when you get used to it after a while, and it's just it's a great way of getting through content. With my iPad, I use a program called Air Display. In a lot of my meetings, if I've got a meeting that I'm out of the office, even sometimes in the office, I'll use it. I use Air Display, which is a way of presenting to clients who, instead of everybody crowding around your computer, I simply hand them my iPad, turn on Air Display, and say, okay, hang on a second. I go to my computer, I push a button, and it then, whatever's on my computer screen gets projected onto my iPad, and it's all done wirelessly. So it's pretty cool. I mean, clients see it as being sort of on the cutting edge, and when I hand them an iPad that they can then use, what they're holding is they're holding a presentation screen. So that's a hugely powerful program. Another program I use on my iPad all the time is called Flipboard. This is where I review my Google Calendar, my Google Reader feeds. Sorry, not my calendar, my Reader feeds, all my social media feeds, and all that sort of thing. It shows up in with like a magazine format. So very easily, I can sit there and just sort of flip through the different feeds. I've got on my Google Reader, I've got different folders set up for different topics of interest. So if I have a desire to just go look at water ski information, I can click on the water ski folder and then just flip through that information. So it really becomes my own customized magazine, which is constantly being updated with content and topics that I'm interested in. I mean, it's awesome. Now, the other thing is for weekly marketing routines. Now, I'm just going to run through some of my weekly marketing routines. Now, on my ideal week, I've laid out my weekly marketing requirements. So some of the requirements are like all my social media postings. So making sure I get my Twitter posts out there, my Facebook and Google Plus and all that sort of stuff. Each week we schedule the Twitter posts in advance. And a lot of the content comes from the Google Reader feeds that I've set up. So we go out and we identify all the great content that I think is worthy of being distributed out to my followers. And then I just simply do that. I review the traffic that comes to my site for the past week to see if there's a keyword that I'd like to rank for. So I've got a system set up where I can just follow it. I mean, using keyword analysis or Google Analytics. It just allows you to say, okay, when people come to my site, what is it that's getting them there? What are the keywords they're searching for, which is getting them to my site? Then, when I find something that is worthy of adding to, I'll then simply write a post on that. So if I have if there's a keyword that seems to come up over and over and over again, and I've got a lot of traffic coming to that, I may support that. I want to rank for that keyword higher in the search engines. So simply what I'll do is I will write a blog post that is keyword rich in that particular topic, and then that simply allows to support the people looking for that. And ideally, it's suited to my ideally the post is suited to a component of content that people are going to want, that's going to allow me to then start nurturing the relationship with them. Now, I've just started using a new tool, and it's a pretty cool tool. It's pretty new now, but it's so I haven't really had too much time to play around with it. But it's a new tool called HitTail, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And this tool analyzes my site in real time and makes suggestions for keywords I should be writing about in order to rank higher in those search engines for these words, because these are the words that people are using to find me. So, it's a great service that just simply allows me to, it summarizes it all for me. Now, what it does, though, which is kind of interesting, is that it actually tells me the long tail keywords that I should be talking about that maybe I won't have any competition for. So it allows me to get better organic search results. And so far it's been pretty cool, what it's been coming up with. So you can check that out. Website stats. So I review each week my website stats, paying attention to the following. Are there any pieces of content that people who are coming to my site are searching for that I can produce and offer in exchange for their email address? This is important because when you can start seeing what's bringing people to your site, what words they're hoping to or they're searching for that's giving them interest to your site, you could actually start using those keywords as topics for content that you can put together. So, analyzing that is very important. And then you simply add the new piece of content to our Basecamp projects list and figure out what we need to do to get the content created. So I look at, basically let the system feed me. So I look at my analytics, take a look at what words I should be writing about, then I put together the content to support that. And, ideally it works quite well, and you just need to free yourself up for some content writing time. Now, the seventh thing that I do is I review membership site content. So I'm a member of some membership sites. So I go to those sites for new content or to use some of their online tools. So for example, I'm part of the Strategic Coach. They have a great online system, and I can go and use a lot of their online tools because I'm a member. So I've got a special login section, and I go there, and it's a great place for keeping track of job descriptions and things that I'm working on. And it's just got some very interesting tools. So definitely, if you're not a Strategic Coach member, I would definitely check it out because it's helped me. I've been a member for 14 years, and I just I've never looked back. It's been awesome. So so definitely take a look at some of those things. So if you've got some membership sites, or if there's some online programs that you're, areas that you go to, some blogs that you frequent that might give you some further information, then definitely that's when you want to be doing that. But make sure you do it in a very organized, methodical fashion, because you can get completely lost in content and get absolutely nothing done. So here's the thing that you always want to remember. Entrepreneurs identify the problems, discover the opportunities, and then build processes to allow other people and other things to do the work. Building a fee-based financial planning firm, it starts with you. You'll then build a hub and spoke business with you as the center point. Your job then is to design processes and workflows for everything you do, and then find the automation and people to manage those processes to do the work. So, everything we've just talked about can be systematized. Everything we've just gone through can have, definitely a system you can put in place to support that, but you can also put in place to teach people how to do what you do. So you'll then be able to grow your business. If you focus on doing the tasks, and again, it comes back to setting your business up, putting processes together so that other people can get the job done, you'll be able to grow your business well beyond what you ever thought was possible, because the limiting factor is no longer going to be you. So take these tools that we've used, that I'm using here on a daily basis. I can't live without any of these. Take these tools that I used in the building process, in the business management process, and just simply get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.